Hello, my name is Dr. Subrasinghe, and this is a short video that is instructing you how to do photo tagging with the Urban Wildlife Information Network, right? So let's first talk about how to log into this database. Now, this database is not open, right? I have to physically provide you access to it. So just type U in, right? And then you go into the home page of Urban Wildlife Information Network. UWin in short, right? And then you go to the resources tab, you scroll all the way down, then you get to this particular link right over here, Urban Wildlife Information Network online database. You click it. Now this is a good time for you to bookmark this particular page, right? um, then what you have to do is you log in. Now remember, um, I may have provided access to this particular database to you through a particular Gmail address. So make sure that you are logging in through that particular Gmail address. Right. Okay, now what you have to do is, so this demonstration is regarding how to classify or how to tag um, photographs that were obtained from trail cameras for Boston, from Greater Boston to Bridgewater area, Transect in eastern Massachusetts, right? So just for your interest, let me actually show you where this particular transect is. This is important to know. Um, so now I'm opening sort of a Google map with all the study sites. So you can see this is quite literally the transect. It's sort of north-south oriented, starting from the Greater Boston area, right? You can see the northernmost point is in Cambridge, right? Almost going towards the fringe of the urban fringe of the Cambridge, going through Boston, right? And then um, heading through Canton area, right? Through Staunton to Bridgewater, right? So that's actually basic orientation, right? And then we have 27 trail cameras in this transect, right? Most of them are concentrated in the urban area, in the Greater Boston metro, and then a few within this rural end. Okay, now that's a basic idea about what kind of locations we are sampling, right? Now let's take a look at how to do the classification, right? So to classify, you can clearly see this tab called classify. You click on that, and then what you are going to see is actually all the photographs that is assigned to you for classification. Now um, by default, you can only see 5 sets of photographs that is given to you, right? And I think over here you can see I have assigned myself over 300 sets of photographs to classify. So each set comes from a particular location collected from a particular day, right? So here this is actually the location name. For example, this shorter code stands for Allendale. It's a sampling station in Boston. It's a property that is managed and protected by the city of Boston. And I have assigned intentionally like a smaller batches of photos in smaller numbers, always less than 100. The maximum, rarely you get something around 60s. Mostly it's actually under 40s, right? So what you start this with over here, classify, right? If I were to go back and show something, you can filter different locations, but I don't think when you're tagging, it is not that important to know where they are. All of those are coming from eastern Massachusetts. So generally, like filtering them before classification by location is not really that important. And on the other hand, by default, the locations come you finish one location entirely before tagging other sites, right? Now one of the facts that you will have to realize is when you start tagging, right, these locations may have lots of human presence, right? This is a very popular area in Boston, right, very close to Boston Harvard Arboretum, so you do see humans. Now, to fast track on classification, what you have to do is actually do something called batch tagging, right? In this particular option over here, if you click batch tagging, what it does is the database uploads all 3 photos right over here. Well, if you wanted to add more photos, just click load more photos. It will add 3 more photographs, right? So the advantage of this one is actually now humans are easily recognizable, right? So I am trying to load as many photos as possible, right, over here until actually I get all the photographs loaded over here, right? Now, so this is clearly a human, right? And over here, right, I am actually, when you click view, it actually zooms up, right? You can actually that's also a human photograph, right? And then this is human photograph, human photographs, human photograph, human photograph, right? Now, interestingly, this guy is actually one of my friends, colleagues, who's actually collaborating with me in getting data from this particular location, right? And this is also a human, right? So I can select all the human photographs at once, and then over here under the species, if you type just HU, you get the human option, right? And then you can actually hit submit. Now you will realize by default the number of individuals is 1. I'm not that concerned about the number of individuals, but I recommend that you accurately include the number of individuals, right? So as a starter, right, I'm going to just go by the default number 1 and hit submit, right? And there's a way you can correct it, right? Now it actually lets you go one by one, right? So in this situation, right, again, rather than going one by, you can go one by one. What you can do is actually look at this photograph, right? In looking at this photograph, you do realize you don't actually see anything, right, in this image. Now, and this is also a night photograph, right? So rather than directly saying, there is none, right, what I would recommend is do zoom to photo, right? And by actually moving your middle mouse button, right, hold, you can actually if you concurrently hold control and then scroll up with your middle mouse button, it actually zooms in, right? The same way, if you do control and the plus sign at the same time, it also zooms in with your keyboard, right? And if you do control negative, it zooms out, right? And you can do the same thing. If you control and click the down scroll, it zooms out, right? And that helps you to sort of zoom into the photograph better. Another way is to look into the next subsequent photograph, right? That has been taken in this particular data series, right? And sometimes if the next photograph is closer in time, you can actually see certain changes in the background, right? In this case, I don't see any difference, right? So I will just click outside and the zooming in goes away, right? So here, since I am pretty confident I don't see anything, I'm going to type empty, right? I don't have to type the whole thing. This thing drops out, pops out. So I select empty, right? And then if I go next, right, remember, I get to this image again. Well, I cannot at a glance directly see if there is anything, right? So if I zoom in a little bit, right, can I see anything over here? No. Let me go to the next available photograph. Well, that is actually a human photograph. So in this one, I am confident, right, fairly confident that is also empty. So I click it empty, right, and then I'll move to the next one, right? So here you have already identified that photograph as human, right? So you don't have to retag it human, and number of individuals is 1, right? So I'll move to the next one. Again, that's a human. I sort of forgot to tag that one as human, right? And then moving up, right? Again, you already tagged it, so you can move forward, right? Again, there is an empty photograph, right? Every time you see an empty photograph, zoom in. Make sure there are no squirrels or chipmunks here and there, right? And then, to be further certain, right, click the forward button, right? See if you can actually see something. Check if you can actually see anything, right, between the 2 successive photographs. If you don't see that, close up call it empty, right, and move forward, right. Again, this seems to be an empty photograph. So what I'm going to do at this stage is to do batch tagging, and batch tag, you can batch tag all the photographs that are actually empty, right? But and then I will load more photographs over here, right? So this one seems to be also empty, right? Let's make sure by zooming in, right? I do not see much around there, right? And I don't see much around there either, right? So actually I can, you know, load further more photographs at this level. Well, do we see anything over here? We do not. Seems like there is someone standing over here, but I'm going to ignore that and select that as well, right? And this one, there is actually a human over there. You can load more photographs, right? And actually I'm going to keep loading as many as possible. Right. And what happens over here at this stage, you loaded all the photographs. Right now you can actually batch tag any empty photograph. That one seem to be empty. Let's make sure it is. That is empty, right? And then let's tag photographs. Let's take a look at this one over here. That also seem to be empty, so I can select it over here, over there, right? And yeah, all of those are empty, so I can actually select all of them and type empty here, right, and submit, right. Right, and then there could be few left that were actually human photographs, right. You can actually quickly scroll through them, right. Human, right, that is actually there are two humans, so I'm going to update this number by 2, right. That is an empty one, right. That's one human. I'm going to go by empty with that one, right. There is one human over there, right, which is something I missed when I was batch tagging, right. This one also is a human, right, and that also is human, again something I missed when I was batch tagging, right. That is also human, right. And when you get used to this, you will actually be able to first easily recognize the human photographs, right. That is actually probably myself, right, and that was also a human. That was also human, right. And at this stage you can actually go back to batch tagging in any case if there are multiple human photographs, right. This and we do batch tagging right over here. Again, for humans, I really don't care whether it's one or two individuals. I'm demonstrating this just for the purpose of your knowledge, right, that you can do it, right. Right, and then we are gradually closing up. Let's just for the heck of it update this to 2, empty, right, one human, right, one human, this should be the last one, right, and submit, right, and it asks you for the confirmation and you confirm, right, and then it finishes, it submits the data you have collected, right. And then just to show you a different location, let's take a look at one of the Boston cemeteries, right, which actually have lots of interesting sightings, right. So let's go to that one over here, right. So again, you can immediately see it very clearly. There's a coyote over here, right. So you can actually zoom in, right, and sort of take a good look at it. And in the subsequent photograph too, there is a coyote, right, one over here and the second one right over here, right. So this again, now you can actually go for batch tagging, right, and just making sure is there anything in this photograph. You can always zoom in, I do not see. So here's why zooming in is easy. Earlier, right, at this level, I almost see nothing, right? Right. But pay attention to what's going on over here. There is actually an eastern gray squirrel over here, right? If you zoom in, you start actually clearly seeing the eastern gray squirrel. Pretty big sized dude, right? And then I'm going to keep loading more photos, right? Because I have two coyotes over here, so I'm just curious, am I going to see more coyotes over here, right? So I'm going to keep loading few more photos, right, just in case there are coyotes. So my idea is to tag all the coyotes. Look at that, there is a coyote over there. um right, and I will keep, sometimes during the daytime, broad daylight, you also see coyote. There's one over there, and that's also a coyote. I know this is very blurry, but given this size, right, um you can reasonably assign that to a coyote, right? Okay. um I can actually load few more photos, right? And now actually, I still can keep loading more photographs, but now I'm actually going to go ahead and tag them, right? Select those two, right? And then there was one over here, there was one over here, there was one over here. Let me see whether I see anything over here. Not there, right? So I will, right, you get coyote over there, right? And then you can hit submit, right? And those data become submitted. Again, now what you can do is wait until this loads, go back to batch tagging again, right? um, Now we did see an eastern gray squirrel in one of those photographs. I don't remember which one that was. If I load more photographs, that might be easier, right? Over here, right? So now what I can do is, since I have one photograph of eastern gray squirrels, I can keep checking uh, other photographs. Right, there is another eastern gray squirrel, so I can actually select photo. If you can select photo right over outside, and then if you hit this particular link, select photo, that also selects photo. There is an eastern gray squirrel over there, right? And then um, let me load few more photos, see if I can see one. Yep, there's actually two of them over here, so I select the photo, right? And then that's actually, seems like a eastern cottontail rabbit. Let me load a few more photos, right? I don't see anything over here. Let's zoom it in. Don't see much over here either, right? Nope, I don't see much over there, right? There was someone over there. It seems like actually myself, but I'm not sure. Right. Load a few more photos, right? And see if I see an eastern gray squirrel. Yep, there is one over there, so I will select that photograph. Right, now I have selected a bunch of photographs with eastern gray squirrel, and now I can actually batch tag them, right? Or go over here, if you type eastern, right, the option pops up, submit, right? And right, and actually somehow I missed this particular photograph. There is an eastern gray squirrel in that one, right? And you can also see there is one over in this one as well, right? This one seems to be empty. This one also seems to be empty. At this stage, I will actually go to batch tagging and tag empty photographs. Right, seem to be, I don't see anything in over here, so that's going to be empty. I select it, right? And then that is not empty, right? You can see in this photograph actually there is, like the hind part of a coyote, right? So and yeah, that's basically all I can see here. Let me load more photographs, right? That actually has an eastern gray squirrel in it. this one, well, there is actually something over here I cannot tell. Let me see over here. I do not particularly see something over here, and so I will go back and select that one, right? And let's keep loading as many photos as possible, right? Over here I do see a squirrel, right? There is a coyote. I'm going to select this one because it seemed to be empty as well. This one I cannot see anything, so I'm selecting that as empty, and this one as empty, right? And then I close it. Now I can tag all of those photographs collectively as empty and submit, right? And then I'm going to have a few more photos left that is untagged, right? So this one right over here, I'm looking at a eastern cottontail, aka bunny, right? So I select eastern cottontail, go next, right? That's a coyote already tagged, right? Over here I do not see anything. It's an empty photograph that I missed in batch tagging, right? Again, something I missed in batch tagging, right? That is a human. I believe it should be me actually, getting back to the camera. And then over here, this is another empty one, another human one. I could have done human tagging when I was batch tagging, right? That's actually a coyote. And then that is actually this is actually very hard to tell, right? At this particular, because it's a night photograph and little too far away, my best guess would be it's actually a raccoon, but I'm hesitant. If you are hesitant, right, you are going to actually consider that as an unknown mammal, right? So this option is there, right? And then you can actually hit it, right? This one, again, it's very blurry, but it's actually, you can see it's taking some sort of a leap, right? It's short, stout legs, so it is most definitely is going to be an eastern cottontail rabbit, right? I go move forward. This one, right, there is actually an eastern gray squirrel, so you actually go ahead, right, and that's actually very likely another it's too small to I am unsure what this guy is. It's definitely some sort of a carnivore. Too small to be a coyote, could be a baby coyote, also could be a red fox. So because of that, I'm actually going by unknown mammal, right? And then that guy is definitely a coyote. Now, most pictures are not this blurry. Interestingly enough, in one location, it tends to be blurry for some reason. I don't know whether it's animals are moving fast or nighttime being less than ideal for that location. So again, this is actually the advantage of training your eyes. Look at this guy. That is actually an eastern gray squirrel, right? Um, right. So I will tag it like that, right? And then there is something over here I definitely cannot tell, like most probably a cottontail rabbit, but I'm going by unknown, right? Unknown mammal, right? Again, it's human, right? That's definitely a coyote. Human, right? Again, remember, you could have batch tagged human. This is actually most definitely empty, right? That's actually a beautiful photograph of a coyote, right? You can actually see it's a huge, beautiful animal during the night time, right? So it's a coyote, right? This is empty. I already had empty over there, right? That's again a coyote. This is a eastern gray squirrel, right? So there are a few that I may have missed when I was batch tagging, right? That is definitely a coyote with that movement, that kind of height, longer body. right? Even if the photograph is blurry, which happens quite sometimes, you can guess by many things. Again, there is definitely something moving in the background, right? But we cannot tell for sure, so that's why we are going by empty over here, right? You could have gone by unknown, but yeah. But and then again, here there is actually someone sitting over here, so it's going to be a human photograph, right? And you are done, right? Let me take a look at some different locations. Where shall I show? Let us take a look at Boston Nature Center and see what kind of tagging we can do over there, right? So it's not sure whether it is the ideal most because it's actually during the winter. So let's go back to tagging. We might not have lots of photographs to tag during that particular time, during spring, late spring, early springtime. Right. Let's take a look at this site in Canton, right? There are 39 photograph, Bradley Estate. This is actually Bird Street. That's even better, right? So I'm going to do batch tagging, right? This location is in Staunton. It's actually a pine forest, as you can see from the background, right? Let's load a few more photos. Seems like there are few human photographs that we can tag. And these photographs probably from I do not recall what time it is from. There's lots of human activities, right? And we will load all the photographs as much as possible. There's a turkey, right? You can actually, I will select all the human photographs together over here, right? Actually, and if you see a dog or a cat, you actually should tag that as an animal, although it's not wildlife, right? Because some of our projects involve documenting human presence and presence of domesticated animals. So tagging non-wildlife is also equally important. So I'm going to tag all of those as humans, right? So what I have done over here, since we have only few photographs, I try to load as much as possible so I can tag human photographs as many times as possible, or empty ones as many times as possible. Again, now this time I'm thinking of actually tagging all the dogs because I did see a number of dogs, right? Don't know whether that's actually let's not have a dog over there. Load all of them. Okay, now let's tag all the dogs. There's one over there. There's one over here. One over here. One. Right. And I'm tagging them as, I think it goes as domestic dog. Here it comes up. Submit. Right. And then what we can do is actually, then we can actually start scrolling, right? This is clearly empty, right? Move on. Right, we have already tagged that. Right now here, this is interesting situation. We have a human, we tagged it, but now I see a dog, right? What you do in this case is you do add another detection. This time you name it as domestic dog, right? And now you can actually move further, right? Here you can actually see an eastern gray squirrel right on this particular log. So I'm going to actually type eastern gray squirrel and hit this, right? Again, I see the same guy, eastern gray squirrel. That human, that's already been tagged. And this guy right over here, I don't know how good you can see it. I can see it quite well. Looking at its stout body shape and this sort of stubby legs, right? And this sort of pointy panda-like ears, right? You are looking at a raccoon, right? And I'm going to save it like that. And this, I'm not sure what's going on over here. I'm unclear. Could be a squirrel, but I am going to actually go by empty, right? I'm not too sure even to call it an unknown mammal. And then the dog has been already marked. That's a squirrel, another eastern gray squirrel. Again, you could have tagged eastern gray squirrel through batch tagging, right? That has been already, that's actually me setting up these cameras. Human, right over here, this is actually again empty. Now empty ones, remember, you could have batch tagged empty ones as well, right? Human, right? This is clearly a raccoon. Now this is the dead giveaway, is this tail with rings on it. We don't have any other mammal with a sort of a chubby tail with rings on it, right? So that's a raccoon. Now that's an eastern gray squirrel. Like, whether to batch tag or whether to, you know, sort of go through one by one, that depends on your skills, right? How well do you perform, how fast do you perform in one way. Like when I do it, I try to batch tag empty photos first. I try to batch tag human photos next, and then I prefer to go by other images one by one so that I can take a better look at them, right? For you, you might have actually different preference, and my students, you know, who's interested in a gray squirrel activity, she batch tags them first and then move into others, right? Okay, there is nothing over here. Now you cannot, right, if you hit next, it will give you a warning message, right? So you have to put an entry before you proceed from one photo to another, right? That's also empty, right? There's a dog. It's already, these are the ones you already marked. There you go. It's again an eastern gray squirrel. Now mind you, not every squirrel that you see is an eastern gray squirrel. Once in a while you actually see the red squirrel, which has a bright red orange fur, right? That's an empty one. And also you could see a black squirrel. Now black squirrels are a subspecies, not a subspecies, it's actually a color variety of the eastern gray squirrel, a melanized form. Now that's a turkey, right? And we have that's not that, right? So you can actually here first look around if you actually have the option. So here we do have the option for wild turkey, right? And hit save, hit save and next. This is also empty, we don't have anything there. There is a raccoon over here, right? That one is empty. That one is also empty. That's an eastern gray squirrel, right? That's a human already tagged. That's an eastern gray squirrel. That's also eastern gray squirrel. That is a human, right? So hit submit, right? So this is actually how you do batch tagging. And in terms of identification, right? In terms of identification, you know, like I recommend eMammals, right, as actually a good starting point, because eMammals is also a different database of game cameras based on trail cameras. It's game photographs based on trail cameras, right? So what you can do is you can go to the view photos, right, and then whenever you cannot clearly identify a particular animal, what you can do is actually you can search for that particular animal over here, right? And example photographs will appear over here, because a really good wildlife shot done by a professional wildlife photographer versus a photograph that is captured in a game camera is going to be very different, right? So make sure that actually, you know, it's okay to take a look at a photographic guide like Smithsonian's or Audubon guide or Peterson guide for mammals. All of those are fine, but it's usually easy to identify an animal based on another photograph that is correctly identified and validated, right? So I'm trying to open this particular photograph of this coyote. Now coyotes are remarkably different from foxes, But how do you tell apart? One is actually their sizes, right? Coyotes are much bigger, right? Their build is much different, right? They have longer limbs, they have a relatively longer body, right? Their profile is higher, right? And they have this prominent, the neck-like region is quite prominent. The snout is much more pointy, right? And also the coloration is much more vivid, right? In a coyote, right? Now, if you look at a red fox, let's try to. That did not work. Interesting. Let's go all the way back. Red fox. Right. Now, in a day photograph, right, you can actually clearly see it, right? They look like as if they are wearing black socks. Even in a night photograph, you can clearly see the toe coloration, as if they are wearing socks, right? And then they have this brown or golden colored beautiful fur on the back, right? And then this particular belly area being white, and you can see, like I mentioned, their build is much more stockier, shorter, right? And if we go back, let's try to see if we could see a really good photograph of a night photograph. Right. See, this is also a red fox. See what I meant by their limb appearance looking like as if they're wearing socks, right? And the tail is much more bushy in foxes than in a coyote, right? And they are a little bit more slender and shorter in profile. Let's take a look at a gray fox now. Those are the organisms that is actually a little hard to identify. See for a day photograph first. This one is much better. Right. Okay, look at that again, much shorter in profile, right? There's no brilliant golden brown coloration. There is no socks-like pattern on their feet, right? They are much more shorter, stockier, right? Less charismatic than a red fox, to be honest, right? And then, well, night photographs are a little bit more trickier. Let's take a look at them. Right, in a night photograph, right, you can see this is again a shorter profile, right? The face structure looks more roundish as opposed to like pointy, right? If you go back, we can see some other photographs, right? And look at this very bushy like tail, right? And you can also see this very faint elongated dark patch on the top of the tail. That's another characteristic feature of the gray foxes. Now, it's harder to tell you all the characteristics between the two fox species versus the coyote. That is something that you will build up, right? As you tag more and more photos, right? Now, if any of those photographs are actually that you are unsure of, right? What you can do is you can actually go by unknown, right? That's completely fine, right? I mean, like there was the option of unknown, right? Now, you might also see, right? I cannot pick up an example out of blue. Sometimes birds, right? So that's why we actually have some bird names. If the bird names are given here, select that bird name available. But if you were to find a particular animal that is not in this list, click add new species, right? At the common name, you must have a common name, and then you must actually better yet include the genus and the species name, right? And then hit submit, right? This will turn on when I actually fill that particular part in, right? So that is actually something that you can do, right? Again, if you cannot see a particular species, right, add a new species, type its common name, right, and then type some sort of a shorter name for that particular animal, and then hit submit. Well, that is actually basically all I have for you as a very quick introduction to tagging and annotation.